All right, welcome back to Generational Gains with my son, Carson Herline, and myself, Greg Herline. I hope you, if you've been engaged in watching some of our YouTubes, are learning from us. I learned from these as well. I learned what I wish I would have known at his age. I thought I was really, really smart, and most of my friends are like, oh my gosh, like, Greg, you were at such a great place at 22, 23. I was out at the bars looking for my next check or whatever, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. And then I meet my son, me basically 23 years later. I'm like, man, I wasn't at the bars, but I wasn't near as driven as where he is now, even further than me, which I think is what every parent wants anyways. So today I wanted to ask, kind of a follow-up. Him and I were talking a little bit before we did this, and we were talking about a couple of different things we could share with you. And one of the subjects that came up was, in the last few months, there's a lot been happening, from not only the politics, but business world and the stock market and retire. We're always talking about money and retirement.
Yeah.
And Carson, for now, I don't know, is it 4 years, 3 years?
4 or 5 almost.
Has been really focused on how to utilize an insurance policy in your financial picture, including kind of reminding me of why I was doing it and using an insurance policy as part of my portfolio.
Yeah.
And I think 4 or 5 years ago, you and a lot of others talked about it more like a bank account. And I asked Carson today, I was like, hey, so how has it changed from when you originally started, engage in helping people use these policies in their estates from 4 years ago till now?
Yeah.
How are you using it, and has that changed? And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, and have him do a little bit more of the talking, because I just think it's very interesting and very applicable, because he's always growing, I'm always growing.
Yeah.
And you can use this subject, I think, at a whole different level than I think you originally thought. And then that I've been using.
Well, it's just that things change. Like over the past 5 years, the strategies I teach have been around for a long time, but the way I look at life insurance as a part of your financial picture has changed. And the deeper I've done into research into life insurance and retirement planning and income planning, the more I've learned of different ways you can utilize insurance that I didn't realize or know before. And some strategies that are super, super cool. And honestly, more important than any other financial retirement strategy that I didn't even know about. And so there's a cool strategy I do want to talk about today that we call the SAFE method. And so it all comes down to, what is retirement? Like what is retirement all about? And I look at retirement as 2 phases of retirement. There is an accumulation phase of retirement, and then a distribution phase of retirement. It's building up your funds for it and then using that money in retirement. And so when you look at retirement, we want to look at it like any other goal that we have. So if you had a goal and you set a goal to go climb a mountain, for example, if you're going to go climb a big mountain, let's go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. It'd be a cool, fun, adventure, right? When we're planning for that, if you were going around looking for a Sherpa to help you climb this mountain, and you were interviewing people, and someone says, hey, I have a 100% success rate of getting up the mountain. I can do that all day long. You're probably feeling pretty confident. This is a great person to help me get to this goal. But maybe under their breath, they might, mumble, but I'm only 50% getting back down. What does that shift, or how does that change your perspective of this goal? The goal is no longer getting to the top. It's getting back down safely also.
Alive.
And so retirement is the exact same way. Every financial advisor you meet with, it's all about accumulation. How can I get as big and high up the mountain as possible? But no one's talking about, how can I come down the mountain? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to come back down the mountain, you need to plan accordingly. You're not going to just pack your bag for just the ascent. You're going to pack your bag for going up and back down. And so we need to do the same planning for retirement. We need to pack the bag or build our portfolio preparing for retirement and the distribution phase also, not just the accumulation. And so how do we do that? Life insurance plays a huge factor in that. And so today I want to talk about that. Why does it go into the picture? How does it fit into the picture? How are we going to use life insurance as a part of that distribution phase? Really dive into that. I like to start by talking about the history of retirement. So in the pre-1900s, retirement was just, you died. Like you worked until you passed away, and that was it. That was life. That's what it was. Up until about the 1930s, around the Great Depression, things changed and it turned into the pension era. You would work for a company for 50 years and they'd give you 5-10 years of retirement as a pension, and that would be some time you don't work. And that was where, things shifted and changed And they built that system really because when the Great Depression happened, people didn't know what to do. And when they wanted to retire, there was no plan to do that. And so the pension became a thing. That worked for like 20, 30, 40 years. A long time, the pension was the goal. And so your grandparents, my great-grandparents, that was the world they lived in. And then the 1970s happened and people, markets started to become more interesting, more opportunities to get into the market, mutual funds and things became available. So in the 70s, 401ks became a thing. And that became the new era of retirement planning. And so when that became a thing, from about the 80s to like 2000, and that big era of 401ks really being the main financial product used, the market averaged 15%, and there was no real down years. And so that was what people based their retirement planning off of, was 20, 30 solid years, the 401k works.
Mm-hmm.
And so the retirement goal, or the retirement, motto became, now it works, it proves it works, let's just live off of the interest of our investments and we'll never need to work again. So if you get your assets to a certain number and they can produce an average return of 15% every year, then you just need to take 10% out of that every year as your income, and your assets should grow the rest of your life, and you should be fine. And that was the prevailing thought going into the 2000s. And then something changed. The market crashed.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2008 and 9, the market crashed. 2020 with COVID, the market crashed. That didn't really happen during the 30, 40-year period of people planning for retirement. And so we're now living in an unknown world of how do you actually deal with income in retirement when the market's unstable? And so Wall Street and the financial world advisors, they came up with a solution to this. Early 2000s, I think it's the 90s, 2000s, in this era, they were starting to study what should you be doing. I think it's called the Monte Carlo studies they did, the simulations, where this is a simulation software that they did where they could guess basically if you had $1 million in assets, what are all the different variations the market could take while you're in retirement, while you're pulling income, and how many of those solutions do you have money at the end of retirement, and how many do you not? Mm-hmm. How many do you run out early? And they looked at not just 5 or 10 scenarios, but hundreds of thousands of scenarios of what those returns could be in retirement. And the reason they did that was because, I'll say what they learned from that was 3 things. Well, and then the theme of those 3 things are that market volatility kills your income. You live in this accumulation world where, sure, maybe the market crashed in 2000. And if you're in accumulation mode, it comes back in 2001 and 2002 and it's all fine. It's all dandy. 2008 crashes, but you hold your stocks. 2 years later, they're back to where they were. So from the outside looking in, people just thought, it's fine. Like your accounts are fine. But that same thought doesn't work when you're actually in retirement. Because if you're retiring in 2008 and the market crashes a year later and you lose everything, what are you going to do? So sure, if you're accumulating, you can wait for bounces back and that's fine. But once you decide I'm retiring, you can't take that decision back very easily. And your life is set. The income you choose is set. Unless you're 75 and want to go back to work, or you want to go do a part-time job, sure. But you set your plan and you stick with it. And so when you get into that mode, things change is the point. And that's what they learned doing these studies. And so what these studies came out to be, and this is where Wall Street, built their solution to this problem, was that 4% would be the withdrawal rate. I'm sure a lot of you listening today have heard that rule. Your financial advisor, your parents, your friends probably told you that 4% is the rate of distribution you can take from your assets when you're in retirement. If you have $1 million of stocks, that means you can take $40,000 a year of income. And what that study came out to be was not that you would be able to take 4% from your assets and live for all of retirement. It was that you had a 90% chance of not running out of money in a 30-year retirement. So not even like building wealth, but just not running out of money, and a 90% chance. And when I think about that, I think of, kind of like the idea of you can't take that decision back. Same with the analogy I use when I talk about this is skydiving. If you're standing on a plane ready to jump and you're about to jump and the guy on your back says, I have a 90% chance of making this work, you're going to get down. That's 10% chance you might not. That's a lot of risk you're taking on your life. No one's probably going to jump if there's a 90% chance you're going to make it and 10% you won't.
Well, what I think interesting on that as well is if I took my assets and only lived off of 4%, what would that number be?
Yeah.
And I think most people, you said only 90%
success rate.
If they had enough.
Yeah.
But if you take those that had enough to live off of 4%, I would guess that most of America could not live off. So I bet if I were to guess, I'm sure there's an easy way of Googling this, but I bet only 10 to 15% of Americans are in a position to live off of 4%.
For sure.
And of that, only 90% will survive. That's the math I think there is.
I mean,
which is why it's even more important to be
planning. I mean, do the math on that then, now that we're thinking about it. If you want $100,000 of income for 30 years in retirement with a 90% success rate of not running out, that would mean you would need to have, what is it, 4 million?
4.8. Well, it's a little less than that. It's like
3
million. Yeah.
How many people can build up 3 million by age 60? Not many people. And so, it's a great point. It's a lot of money to build up. However, there's a solution. There's a way to maybe not build as much up in assets and have similar income, or build up the same amount in assets and have double the income.
Or less volatility.
And less volatility. Well, the solution is less volatility. Yeah. So because of this volatility in the market, that's what affects your ability to take income. And so if volatility is actually the problem that you're facing in retirement, how can we combat volatility? And that's the question no one talks about when it's retirement planning. Everyone just says, try this new investment, this new index tool, this new product we developed. Like, all of the things that financial advisors present are just up the mountain thinking, but they're not actually packing the bag right to be coming back down the mountain. And so volatility is the problem.
It'll mess up your distributions.
And it'll mess up your distribution rate. And so that's what you actually should be trying to solve for in retirement with building up in the accumulation phase. Of course, you need growth. You have to do growth. And if you like the stock market, do the stock market. You like real estate, do real estate. I don't care. But there's always going to be volatility, no matter what asset you invest in. And so how can we combat volatility in retirement? And so that's what we're looking for.
So how do you do it?
That brings it up. There's a guy named Wade Pfau. He's a PhD of retirement income. And he's who I studied and read a lot of his white papers on teaching these strategies. And he actually, 10 years ago, reran all this math. And he said, okay, volatility changes things. All right, what's the real math then? What should people actually be comfortable to do, and what are some solutions? And so when he ran the math, not to make matters worse before they get better, but when he ran the math, with volatility, to have the same 90% success rate of not running out of money, you actually can only take out 2.8%. That's the new distribution rate that's deemed
So you need to accumulate more then.
You need to accumulate more. Because of volatility, you only can take 2.8, call it 3% instead of 4%. So you lose 1% of income.
So now you need to make 4 million rather than 3 million to get out a little over 100,000.
Yeah, a lot more difficult to do. So that being said, he taught and he researched that you need a volatility buffer, a buffer for the volatility. We call it the safe account or the safe method. And so what the volatility buffer is having a separate place that you can pull income from when the market's down. Because remember, if your $1 million of assets loses value in the year and you expect it to recover, great. But if you pull income from it also, you don't have to make double the returns to get back to even.
Double whammy.
Double whammy. So if in the down years, you don't touch your accounts and you let them recover, and you have some other place, a volatility buffer to depend on for income, kind of having like an insurance policy for your retirement income. Like, it's actually literally what it is. But, well, anytime the market's down, I have another place to pull the same amount of income from, and I let my accounts recover. And by getting rid of that volatility and letting your accounts recover, having somewhere else to pull income from, it will double the length of time you can have money in retirement. That's math. Or you can double the amount of income you take. So instead of taking 3%, you can now take 6%, which now means if you want 100K of income, you only need 2 million in assets. So it opens the door for somebody to actually have less in assets and have more income, or someone who's retiring early, be able to live longer with the same amount of income because they have somewhere to tap into when the market's down. And so we set up an insurance policy as that volatility buffer or safe account.
So you create an insurance policy, which is essentially an insurance policy on your retirement.
Yes.
All right, so how does that work?
Yes. How that works is, if we're going to look for a place to put money that's, well, first of all, cannot be correlated to the market.
Yeah.
Right? So if your preferred investment is crypto or real estate or stocks, this can have nothing to do with those places, because if those accounts are down, your safe account can't be down.
Sure.
So it has to be not correlated to the market. It needs to be some sort of guarantee that it's going to always be there, always be growing. Has to be a guaranteed safe vehicle, because this is what you're counting on for income when the market's down. And so that, along with being protected, having flexibility of how much money you can put into it, because maybe you're 60, going to retire next year, and you need to, move $500,000 over into the safe account before you retire, or maybe you have 20 years to retirement and you want to fund it over time. So it needs to be some type of account also that has flexibility with how much you put into it, and it can't have any red tape. Your Roth IRA has red tape. $6,000, that's it. Like, you can't do more. Mm-hmm. Some scenarios you can, right? So it can't have red tape. You have to have control over it. Has to be guaranteed, no risk. Can't be correlated to the market. What type of asset does that?
Sounds too good to be true.
Whole life insurance. It's stupid. It's super simple. It's just insurance. It's a private asset that's guaranteed from day one.
And it's a fixed rate of return.
Fixed rate of return and not correlated to the market. Provides a death benefit. So if you die early, your wife just gets the volatility buffer handed to her. You're protecting yourself. It's all still liquid. You can do any sort of contributions. You could do a huge lump sum. You could do funding over 10 years, over 5 years.
So can you give me an example of this? Like, give me an example. Like, you kept using this $1 million or $2 million example. So you tell me, but is the example a $2 million an example where I've saved up to $2 million, and the typical way of doing things, if I'm taking out 3 or 4% a year, then most likely I'm going to outlive my retirement, because there's going to be sometime 2 or 3 drops during my retirement where that's going to kill me. Yeah. And so to avoid that, I instead do what? I put away the same amount of money, or how does that work? Tell me how that works.
That's exactly right. So if you said, hey, I have 10 years till retirement, I put aside 30 grand a year for retirement between my 401k contributions, my employer match, and my savings. That's my total savings. I have 10 years to retirement. Here's where my assets are today. We would say, okay, this is actually pretty cool. We built like a proprietary software tool that does all this math for us. So it would show us, okay, based on your assets, savings, rate of return expectations, how long you have until retirement. It'll tell you exactly how much you should put in your safe account, and how much you should keep putting in your growth vehicles, and how long you should do it for, and what the assets will be at retirement, which will then show you how much income you'll be expected to have in retirement. So we built tools to actually mathematically prove how this would work for you. In every scenario, it essentially doubles the amount of income you can take. But to give you a real life number, if you save 30 grand a year, maybe 15 grand a year keeps going in your 401k, and 15 now goes inside of these insurance policies. And that would mean in 10 years when you retire, your assets would be a lower number, because the insurance policy is not going to grow as much as your growth assets will.
Hold on that. So that's kind of what I was thinking. So
it'll be less.
So let's use your number. If and this is just an example, obviously, but everyone's variables are different based upon the expectations of returns. But let's say I put in, this is like deep for those. If you like numbers, well, it's good and bad, because we're not giving you too many numbers, but we're also giving you a lot of numbers. Yeah. It seems as though if I'm doing 30 a year, like you said, but instead of doing 15 and 15, well, now at the end of 10 years from now, I'm going to have, instead of having 3 million, I'm going to have 2 million, which is way less, $1 million less. And I'm going to have, $500,000 or whatever the number is in my safe policy. Yeah. And so I'm going to have, call it overall, let's say again, $2 million, $1 million less than I would have. Yes. But because I have the safe policy, it'll be like as though I had 4 million. Correct. So it really just comes down to numbers, because to me, this sounds too good to be true. Mm-hmm. I like it. I like that there's more guarantees and more security, and helps you in the downfall. So it really comes down to plugging in your own numbers. Yeah. And truly treating these policies more like a retirement account rather than your bank account. Yes. Right? 100%. I mean, that's what I'm hearing from you. Yeah. And to your point, you will accumulate less in assets, but if we can double the amount of income you can take, then if you have less assets, you'll have double the income in that amount of assets than a bigger amount and a small amount of income. So it will make more sense income-wise to be having a safe account set up instead of doing everything in your growth vehicle. So I guess the thing that I like as well is what you're saying is You're not saying invest more or buy something else to put more money in. If you have X amount to put away, $100,000 a year to put away, just do it differently. And you help with your program to say, okay, here's what it would look like. And you can kind of tweak that back and forth a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you put together the calculated kind of safe insurance policy to create this equation. So now when you have bad years, when you go to retire, you take from that account.
Correct. You pull from the policy as income and you let your growth accounts recover and keep going.
And it seems as though, again, this is your world, not mine, but I'm obviously invested in it, which actually makes me feel better because I don't use my policy as much. And so that's probably a good thing.
Right, yeah.
But I feel like if this was the case, then I could essentially save less if I wanted to save less. And I could, or I could just invest more differently based upon these numbers.
Or maybe be more aggressive because you'll have another thing to fall back on.
Yeah.
And so to your point, those of you who watch this podcast or listen to it probably have heard us talk a lot about in the past about infinite banking and using life insurance as a banking tool to finance things, to pay for things, lend from it. You can still do all of those things with a safe account. If your goal is just build up a safe account to be X amount when you retire, well, you can be leveraging that policy the entire time. As long as you repay it and refill it by that retirement date, you kept the safe method. And so to your point, you might not feel the pressure to use the policy at all times every year. You don't need to, because it's also going to play that role of a volatility buffer at the end of the day. And so if we're utilizing these policies for income and retirement, the game's totally different. And like you said too, like this is not picking investments over other investments. Like other financial advisors would just tell you, keep accumulating, keep growing, keep doing this investment. But again, they're not planning for coming back down. And by telling you to put more and more in growth accounts, that's not helping you actually have more income.
Well, and there's so many other, insurance to me for the longest time used to be a dirty word. And I feel like in the last 10 years of my career, it's the most stable thing that I've invested in.
Yeah.
Because year after year,
I
mean, sure, there's been good deals I've done in real estate or in different businesses, but end of the day, no volatility and a guarantee, and that like engine that just continues to go like this.
Yeah.
Typically will outperform this because, like you just said, even in my real estate deals, they'll look like this, but then sometimes I have losers. Yeah. And then I'll lose maybe all or a big portion of my money. And it's like, so that's another good reason.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. I had a few things to wrap on this, but go ahead.
Yeah. So obviously you guys know what we do. My dad runs a self-directed IRA company, and I've been doing a lot of insurance strategies. And so if you're someone who's wondering how this can actually fit into like your plan and your numbers, that's what we'd love to help you with. If you're someone who wants to be putting some in a self-directed IRA and some in a safe account and be lending and doing hard money loans and doing things with your IRA and funding a policy and prepping for that retirement time, that's exactly what we both specialize in. And so those are the kind of conversations we love to have. If you have questions about this, you want to better understand it, that's what we're here to do.
So I would add this is I've heard this a little bit in the last, 12 months. And what I would add is figure out the numbers for you. For me, the sexy part about all this is my personal numbers. Like just playing with them, like a phone call with Carson being like, okay, I get the concept, or I kind of get the concept, but like, let's work on some of my personal numbers.
Yeah.
So I would recommend getting on a call with Carson, having him walk you through this, but with your numbers. Yeah. Like, hey, I'm putting away 10 grand a year, 100 grand a year, whatever the number is. And from there, he can take those numbers and plug it in and be like, oh, I'm going to be okay with this new safe plan.
Yeah.
Or, oh shit, I'm not going to be okay.
Yeah.
And so I really need to put away another $5,000 or $10,000 and what that does.
Yeah.
And so I would say focus on that. Do the numbers. It's the only way to actually make it applicable to you and to see if this is the right thing for you. And we don't do any hard sales. This is not a hard sales pitch. I just want people that listen to us to have better relationships with their kids, have more financial knowledge and base with their families and each other, but also apply things that will make you better when you go to retire, make you sleep better at night. It's all about sleeping better at night, making good decisions, teaching your kids the right things, them teaching you the right things sometimes as well. So hopefully this was helpful today. I know it was a lot of Carson. I actually appreciate it because I still learn from this guy every single time. But absolutely reach out to him and find out how this could work for you.
I love it. So wrapping up with today then, let's do what we always do. All of our viewers and listeners probably already know. Hopefully you guys are implementing this with your families at the dinner table. We do something called sweet, sour, and service at our family dinner table, where we talk about sweets, so some highs, some sour, some lows, and some service that maybe we did in the last day or week. And so we always end our episodes with that. And I can start.
Yeah.
We haven't done all three in a while. We always usually just do one of the three.
Uh-huh.
I think today we're going to do all three.
Let's do it.
So I will start by saying sweet. Well, bigger picture, we just got golf memberships. We just got a golf course membership we've never had before. We've never been golfers, and we're getting into it. And so I went this morning and played 9 holes and played actually really good. It was super fun.
At Bella?
No, I didn't.
Oh, dang it. Not at your new membership.
Not the membership, but I just played. And so that's the sweet. I've been getting better and more comfortable, so that's been fun. So what's your sweet? Let's go back and forth.
My sweet is the last couple of days. Had some good family quality time. Got to hang out with my grandson Wells. I got to see him 3 days out of the last 4, which makes me happy. So that was probably my sweet, just being around his big old cheeks.
Yeah. And my sour, I mean, Wells, and we haven't done a podcast in a month or two, just with the holidays and stuff. But our son Wells is 6 months old now. So he's older, he's big, and he's doing super well. But I guess the sour with that, though, is he's still not sleeping as good as we wish. He doesn't take naps really good at all. And he's doing pretty good at night, but still, it's tough to fight him to sleep all day, every day. I know that's for sure Anna's sweet or sour.
All right. My sour is I feel like I need to do a better job with my calendar. Once I figured it out for a while, then it's been a little difficult. I feel like my calendar's been owning me since the New Year's.
Yeah.
And so I need to do better back on that on my calendar. So I will.
That's good. Service. You have anything?
Yeah.
Go for it.
I have a service. I have had a lot of extra people over for dinner the last 4 days at our home. More than we typically like. But it's hard to say no when your kids want to bring their friends over for dinner because you love their friends.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's no breaks, and like every meal there's kids over.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's nice. So I feel like my service was not having very many consistent meals just as a family.
Yeah. That's good. I'll wrap up here. We got a little service. I was able to, we have an employee who, what's the best way to put it? I don't know. I gave her a space to rant. I gave her a space to be comfortable and open and talk about things. And she was very appreciative of that afterwards. So
to rant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was good this week. But anyway, that's our sweet, sour, and service. Hope you guys can do the same with your families. Have a good rest of your week.
Thanks, guys.